Hello and welcome to the MBOM podcast, where you'll learn to master the business of yoga. MBOM is a proud part of the Wander Barn Podcast Network, and I'm your host, Amanda Kingsmith. I'm a 500-hour registered yoga teacher, a yoga business coach, and a total business geek. Here at MBOM, you'll learn everything you need to know to create a sustainable yoga business by learning from myself and guests from around the world about how they built their yoga businesses, and about how you too can become a successful yoga teacher, studio owner, and much more. All right, let's dive in. Hello, dear friends, and welcome back for another episode of the MBOM podcast. We took a little break last week, and we are back with a new, fresh episode. I hope that wherever you are tuning from in the world, you are safe and healthy and well. Today on the podcast, I am very excited to be joined by Stephanie Mitchell. Stephanie is the founder of The Rolling Mat, which is a mobile yoga studio based in Atlanta, Georgia. And Stephanie and I actually recorded this episode before coronavirus hit. So we actually recorded this back in February. So if you hear us talking about anything that feels a little bit off, that might be why. And I've been holding on to this episode for the last couple of months because it just didn't feel like the most relevant conversation to be having. However, now as things start to open back up, now as yoga teachers, we look at being back in physical spaces with our students, I think that this is a very relevant conversation to have. And what we're going to be talking about today is corporate wellness programs and corporate yoga. And for those of you who are not super familiar with corporate wellness or corporate yoga, this is the idea that you would take your teachings into a corporate environment, so into a workplace, and teach either before work or after work or maybe on a lunch break. And this is a really great way as a yoga teacher to get in front of a different audience, an audience that might not feel comfortable in the yoga studio space, and to provide people who sit at a desk all day and maybe have very stressful jobs with an opportunity to learn the techniques and tactics of yoga, to move their body, and so much more. I know for me that when I worked corporate, I was super stressed all the time, and my yoga practice was a saving grace. So I think that more and more corporate yoga and corporate wellness is a really beautiful thing to have in the world. And so today on the show, Stephanie and I are going to dive into her yoga story, how she became a yoga teacher, what inspired her to build a business offering corporate programs, and then her tips for you to get started, because now she actually works as a mentor for other people who want to do this. So she serves to assist other corporate yoga teachers and help them create their vision and empire, if you will, while owning their confidence and worth. So she's doing a lot. She has a lot of great things to say, and I really hope that you guys enjoy this episode. Before we get to it, just a quick word from our sponsor. This episode is brought to you by Offering Tree. When you're a yoga teacher and you're trying to build your digital presence, it can be daunting, especially right now when you are trying to take your offerings online as fast as possible. Offering Tree set out to make creating your digital presence fun, easy, and affordable. With one account, you can create a website in minutes that has your schedule built right in. They also have email marketing tools to collect email addresses, send newsletters, and automated emails to your subscribers. It all works seamlessly together with one account and one subscription. Forget spending all your time and energy just trying to remember what account does what and what your login information is. On top of that, Offering Tree has an embedded scheduling feature, so if you already have a website that you love, you can use it for online payments and scheduling. They have also just announced that they now have Stripe integration so that people from Canada, the UK, Australia, and 30 plus countries can accept payments using Offering Tree. This is something that a lot of people have been asking for, and it is finally live. So that is super exciting. To learn more about what Offering Tree can do for your digital presence, visit offeringtree.com/MBOM. Offering Tree has been supporting MBOM for over a year now, and I not only love the product, but I also love the people. And Offering Tree is also providing special pricing for MBOM listeners. So be sure to visit offeringtree.com/MBOM to receive your discount. Welcome to the podcast today, Stephanie. I'm really excited to have you here with me today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited as well.
Yeah, there's so much good stuff that I want to dive into. You have such an incredible business that I'm just really, really excited about. But I think a good place to start is to talk a little bit about how you first got into yoga and what inspired you to become a yoga teacher. Can you share that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I first got into yoga when I was in college, my freshman year of college. And it kind of came about, I was a big practitioner of Pilates, and yoga kind of came about actually through a health and wellness class that I was taking. My teacher actually had mentioned something about yoga, and he was an athlete or former athlete. And as well as being a professor, he was also a coach for the college that I attended. And he actually mentioned the benefits of stretching. And we had kind of like this extracurricular thing that we had to do. We had to get like hours outside of the class of activity. So he really inspired me by, all of the wonderful words he said about the practice. And I had always heard that yoga and Pilates were kind of similar, but yoga was even more because, Pilates is more focused on the core, and it's a lot of work done on your back, on your side. So, I just decided to give it a whirl, and I went to my first class. It was taught by this amazing, beautiful Russian lady, and I loved her accent, loved her style and everything that she brought to it. And I found myself going to class twice a week. And it was through my school. My school offered it. And then before I knew it, I really started seeing the benefits that it was having on my life at the time. I was a full-time student, and I also worked in sales while I was in college. And, I just really loved the mind and body connection that I received from it, and how it really helped balance my stress, the stress that I didn't even realize I had. Because it's all, it kind of provided me a little bit of a window into myself as well, and the mindfulness of it and everything. So I learned a lot. I started my own personal practice at home, and before I knew it, I was practicing yoga more than Pilates, not even realizing that this would be something that I would be doing full time one day. So I graduated from college in kind of a yucky time. The job market wasn't very good, and just had, oddball jobs here and there. I wasn't really using my major. And then I finally landed a corporate job, and it was very rewarding, but very high energy, very high stress. As much as I loved to travel, I was traveling all the time. I was never home. And sometimes I would spend one night in a place, then have to hop on a plane the next day to spend another night, and so forth. And I had this moment of realization one time when I woke up, and I didn't even remember what city I was in. And my coworkers were always very stressed, and my boss, even though he was a great man, he didn't really, I don't know. It's almost like, we never really felt like he was reading the stress or seeing the stress that was going on. But throughout this whole time, I had my personal yoga practice, and it helped me get through the stresses of my adult life and my work life. And I remember thinking to myself, man, I really wish that I could share my employees, because, I woke up in the morning and did yoga before I sat in traffic, and they woke up and I was peaceful when I got to work, and, they would come to work really stressed and, not really knowing, what to do with the day and the tasks at hand. However, I didn't know how to express it. And one thing led to another. I ended up losing that job. And it was kind of just a wake-up call for me, and I didn't really know what I was going to do. I mean, it was already so hard for me to get a corporate job in the first place, and I interviewed multiple interviews for jobs that I could do in my sleep with the background and the degree that I had, and never landed one. So, I come from a family of entrepreneurs, which is also something else. And, I remember my dad just kind of telling me, you're not meant for corporate. He's like, you're meant for something else. You're meant for something bigger. And I took that with me as I ventured out to California and stayed out on the West Coast for a while and did some soul searching, and then realized that, I wanted to get certified and pursue my passion of yoga and all of the wonderful things that it's brought to my life. So that's kind of how I ended up where I am.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing all of that. And
Yeah.
it's so interesting hearing your story. And one of the things that kind of really, I mean, there's lots of it that really connects with me and that I can relate to as well, but is this idea of like working in corporate. And it almost seems like, hearing your story and also drawing from my experience working in corporate, like people just don't realize that there's a way to handle even the most stressful situations without having so much stress. Like there are
Mhm.
ways that we can manage our stress and there are ways that we can take care of ourselves even while, sitting all day and working in an office. And I feel like, my experience working in corporate sounds very similar to yours. Like it's high paced, it's fast, it's a stressful environment and you almost get rewarded based on how busy you tell people you are and how stressed you are about the project you're working on or something like that. And it's interesting because it's so easy to get caught up in it, but then when you leave it, it's also really easy to look at it through this totally different lens of like, what was I doing? Like I didn't need to be like that.
Right, exactly. Yeah, totally. And that's an interesting point that you mentioned about, like you get rewarded for having a ton of work. It's like, oh, you're taking on multiple tasks at one time. Oh, gold star, but where are you personally? What's your personal life like? And, because you find yourself when you're in corporate, you're in that fight or flight autopilot mode because you just go in and you have to get stuff done. You have to you have to meet your deadlines. You have to make your flight. And then on top of making your flight, you've got to answer a million emails. So it's like, you don't even really realize what you're doing. And, what kind of life is that?
Yeah, absolutely. And it can turn into, skipping lunch or eating lunch while you're glued to your computer and so many
Mhm.
other things. And I mean, as an entrepreneur, I'm certainly guilty of the like taking my lunch in front of my computer type thing. So that can happen outside of
Sure.
the corporate world as well. But I think that there is more of this like I don't get like rewarded for doing that. I need to be like, hey, you need to just move away. You don't need to answer these emails right now. Just focus on nourishing yourself. And yeah, I just remember like taking a lot of
Exactly.
lunch breaks right in front of my computer, and sometimes even being like, I'm just going to work through lunch. I just don't have time to go grab food right now, which is
Hmm.
so unhealthy.
So unhealthy. Yeah, exactly.
And so you got this teacher training, and can you tell me a little bit about what your journey was like after that? Like what your teaching journey looked like as you began to actually become a yoga teacher?
Yeah, yeah. So I really look back on it super fondly now. Now that it's kind of being brought up again. And so I went into my teacher training very business minded. I knew I wanted the training, and I knew from a personal standpoint, an emotional standpoint, it was going to be wonderful for me. Because to be honest, at the time I was a little bit of a wall. I felt like society just kind of wasn't accepting me. I was just going through this, all these emotions. My family was like, "What are you doing?" And I was, I was just kind of. I had friends, but I was kind of alone because I wasn't really fully present when I was around them. Just like focusing on my future. So luckily, I have a super supportive family, and I had some brainstorming sessions with my sister before I even started my training, and we kind of came up with the idea of a mobile yoga studio, because I had to think about the main things that I loved most, was yoga, travel, and music. And the music comes through in the playlists that I make. So I'm kind of definitely nourishing that passion in that way. But so long story short, I went into my yoga training very business minded, and I realized that you're not really taught a lot about owning a business or being a yoga boss in your training. They don't really, focus on that because they're focusing on a lot of other things, which I get. But we spent maybe 2 hours on talking about the business of yoga, and it consisted of the insurance that you need to have, and what you can write off and what you can't on your taxes. Um, so with the way that I went into my training, coming out was very difficult. Um, I'll be completely transparent here. I experienced a lot of the same rejection and feelings that I did from the corporate world, from the yoga world. And I was very thrown back by it at first. And because I wanted to teach, I wanted to meet new teachers. I did have this whole mobile journey in mind, but I wasn't really sure what it was going to look like yet. So, I would go to studios and I would audition and I wouldn't make it, or I would go to studios and they would tell me, oh, well, you have to train with us in order to teach for us. So, I started teaching at LA Fitness, like multiple LA Fitness. And it was, looking back on it, it was wonderful it was a wonderful experience because no, you don't get paid very well, but at the same time, you're teaching to a large group of people and you are able to get really good with your verbal cues because, by contract, you're not allowed to touch the students. For like hands-on assists or anything like that. So got really good, it broke any nervousness that I had teaching in front of large groups, got really good and solid with my verbal cues because I'm a foundational teacher anyway. So I really like to focus on, the anatomy of the body while you're flowing. So it gave me the opportunity to do that, experiment with my playlists. So that was pretty much kind of my teaching experience. And then I have an extensive background in event planning and, I worked at a brewery while I was getting my training and I, did my own kind of warm market research while I was working. And I, would ask people, what would you think about, yoga here, like beer yoga? Because I just noticed the environment was very, the demographic is very open, wide range of people, and they have the space. They have a very like unique and safe space, most breweries. So, through all the market research I did, I got hands down, if you teach it, we'll come. And so I started leading beer yoga events at one brewery, and then it caught on. And then before I knew it, I had, 3, 4, 5 other breweries that I was working with and leading these large scale community events. And it was super rewarding. For me, and they were great, and I met new people. I also had regulars. Then I started meeting people in the corporate world. I started hearing, more woes of those that were in their 9 to 5, and how wonderful it is to come to events like this to de-stress and stretch and all of these things. And then I did work for a corporate wellness company for a while that implemented like yoga and CrossFit and Zumba. Kind of got a feel for how they did things, and great company, great people. But I did notice that there was a disconnect on how they approached their clients and what classes that they would, get me and the other teachers to teach. There was no real sense of what do the employees need. So I woke up one day and I just thought to myself, I'm going to start my own corporate branch because this was something that I was passionate about doing while I was even in corporate. I just didn't have the voice for it yet. And through my events, I started getting more warm leads for corporations. And it all just kind of snowballed from there into becoming a really unique and all-inclusive branch.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I love how, this job that you were working at a brewery and then thinking about how maybe you could bring the offerings of yoga there led to like corporate gigs. I feel like it's not like the traditional route. Like when somebody's teaching how to, get in front of people in the corporate space, it's not like, hey, go teach in a brewery, but it makes a lot of sense. These people who are maybe not comfortable in a yoga studio, they're probably already going for maybe like beers with their friends on the weekends or after work. And then, that just takes somebody who's interested in yoga to be like, hey, this would be a really fun event to go do with your friends. And then, you're in front of all of these different people that are within, working for all these different companies and in all these different industries.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Like it makes sense. And, I didn't realize it at the time, but, my students at these beer yoga events, they all work in corporate, majority of them. So, that it makes sense. It's interesting how they have tied together. So my events lead to corporate gigs, and then my corporate students come out to my events. So, it goes hand in hand.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That is super interesting and definitely makes a lot of sense when you say it. Hey friends, we're just taking a quick break from the podcast to talk about an upcoming training that I am so excited to be co-hosting. This is a mastermind masterclass, and it's all about how to create your own mastermind for free. So, let me tell you a little bit about why I'm a part of this and why I've created it with these three special women that I'll be co-hosting with. So, I am co-hosting with Shannon Crow, Amanda McKinney, and Mado Hesselink. If you guys do not know these ladies, you need to know them. Shannon is the host and founder of The Connected Yoga Teacher. Amanda McKinney is the host of Marketing Yoga with Confidence, and Mado is the host of the Yoga Teacher Resource podcast. And together, the four of us have created a peer mastermind. We've been meeting for an hour to an hour and a half every 2 weeks since the fall of 2019. And let me tell you, working together with three other people who do something very similar to me and who have very similar business models, yet are also targeting different people, has been an absolute game changer in my business. It has given me a group of like-minded people who really understand what I'm doing and who I'm targeting to bounce things off of, like questions, software, feedback on projects I'm working on, and so much more. So on June 25th, the four of us are coming together and offering a special masterclass on how to create a peer mastermind without having to pay anything that will help you make more money in your business. This is being offered from 2 to 3:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. In this masterclass, we're sharing the different types of mastermind groups you could create, why masterminds work to help grow your business, how to start a mastermind and who to invite, how to structure your mastermind calls to get the best value out of your time, and so much more. We cannot wait to share this with you so that you can create your own mastermind and grow your own business. So if this is something of interest to you and you want to join the four of us for a special training, head on over to mbmyoga.com/events to register. Once again, that's mbmyoga.com/events. I'll see you there. And so I'm curious, at what point did you start the rolling mat? Because at this point in your journey, you're still in LA, right?
No. So I went out to California for like a couple months just to stay with a friend and get really clear. And then I came back to Georgia and got my certificate. Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay. So you're
Yeah.
teaching in Atlanta this whole time. Gotcha.
Yes.
And then, okay, cool. Can you tell me a little bit about when you started the rolling mat? Like, where did the idea for that come from?
So I pretty much started the rolling mat like straight out of my training. And again, it was a very big jump, and it was more of a put the cart in front of the horse and see what works. So, I got my LLC and registered my business and just kind of hit the ground running. And, I would, try to host workshops, which, I didn't really get much of a turnout because nobody really knew me, so it's like I started doing all of this work, but then learning, okay, no, you need to build your following, you need to build a bit of a reputation. So yeah, I was just teaching in gyms. And I was bartending and I was leading the beer yoga events, is really where it all started.
Yeah, that's amazing. And so after you spent some time building your following and getting some more people, did it just kind of come organically that you decided to like kind of have this, I guess like this mobile studio?
Yeah, well, I always wanted to be mobile because coming out of training and all of that, I didn't want to have a brick and mortar for a number of reasons. I didn't want to have the overhead. I couldn't afford the overhead. And I also, wasn't sure if I was going to stay in Georgia or if I was going to move. And I wanted the ability to be able to take my journey and my business wherever it is that I want to go. I didn't want to be tied to one specific place because I love to wander. I love to travel. Going on year 5, well, yeah, year 6, going on year 6 now, I've built myself up to be pretty much completely, mobile. So I don't have to be in Georgia to do my work. I can, travel to Guatemala and do my work. And I've been very fortunate to meet some really amazing yoga teachers that I now have under me that, I hire them to take on some of the corporate gigs I have, and my events as well. If I'm not here for an event that I'm hosting, I can get them to cover it for me. And, and then my mentorship platform is also, I can take it on the go wherever I am. So it was always a vision to really monetize on being mobile. I had a lot of people tell me, doubters, I guess, if you will, no, you really need to open a brick and mortar. That's how you're going to build a following. That's how you're going to get these people out. That's how you're going to get these people to your events. But I mean, you can throw a rock at a yoga studio. So I want to do something different. And I'm just talking with you about it. It makes me feel really, really grateful that I didn't give up, that I didn't just become, another brick and mortar. Not saying that there's anything wrong with them at all. They're definitely wonderful places, but I'm happy that I was able to make it, and be successful doing it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I definitely hear that as somebody who's also, completely remote. And there's a lot of people along the way that were like, that's not possible. You're not going to be able to do that. Maybe not necessarily haters, but definitely people who are doubters.
Right.
And
doubters.
I think that it's like, if you don't have a strong community of other people doing that around you, which it's a lot easier to find that now, but a number of years ago, it was kind of hard, and it's hard when you're starting out. Like, you only have the people that are kind of in your sphere, and then you have to find new people and meet new people doing the things that you want to do. But in that time, you kind of have to just like persevere above everything else. Like, people will always give their unsolicited advice on the things that you're doing. And, of course, there's great things about brick and mortars, and, there's pros and cons to everything that we do. But I think that it's really great that you were able to recognize that that wasn't for you, and then keep pushing towards this thing that was your dream, and then be able to achieve that dream. And so I'm sure that there's a lot of people listening who are like, okay, what you're doing is my dream. Like, I want to run a business where I have a team of people who can help me if I'm, in Guatemala for a month, and I can keep making money while I'm there. And, obviously I know there's a lot that goes into that. I'm curious if you can kind of walk me through like some of the main things that you've done to be able to go from needing to be the person on site for everything you do to being able to, travel and wander as you want.
Right. Well, it definitely took time and a lot of, trust, I guess, if you will, in others. But basically, I just really expanded my offerings. So, especially with my corporate yoga branch, I have a whole team of wellness professionals that work under me. And that consists of yoga teachers that are specialized in all different areas. So I have yin yoga teachers, I have power yoga teachers, and I have just kind of like your regular vinyasa flow yoga teachers. And then, nutritionalists, even massage therapists. So really diversifying my offers and going out to networking events. And this is how that came to be, is just networking, I'm very much a people person. I love meeting new people. And I would go to networking events even before I knew exactly what I was going to be doing with my company. So now that I know, these networking events that I go to are even more beneficial for me and for those that meet me. And just, continuously showed face and continue to. I've become really close with a few of them. I picked, 3 really amazing ones that I go to consistently. I started out going to a zillion, and then I found a few that I really enjoy going to consistently and that have given me business, and I've been able to give them business. So through that, I've just been able to kind of put my own team together. Because at networking events, you meet a lot of small business owners, a lot of nutritionalists, not a lot of health coaches, insurance, finance, that like to do workshops and stuff for people that don't really know what to do with their finances. So I just really started building my community through that. And then in regards to yoga, I really leaned on a studio here that's close to me, and their teachers who I really trust and really admire. And I met some really amazing yoga teachers through the studio. And, the struggle with that has always been finding yoga teachers that I can trust to, definitely, make the event or definitely make the class, because I've definitely gone through the rigmarole of, getting called at the last minute saying, oh, this is just too much for me, or I'm sick, or, whatever. So, through the studio, I've really built a rapport with a lot of the yoga teachers there, and they're happy to assist me and happy to help me. And they're wonderful teachers. So I fully trust them, not only to show up to the class, but also to lead my students the rolling mat would want.
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. I love, the tip about going to networking events and even going before you fully know like what your company looks like, because sometimes I feel like it's just those initial conversations with somebody else that maybe sparks an idea or forms a friendship or a partnership. And maybe you meet like 100 people that you're like, okay, we'll probably never see each other again and we can't really benefit each other. But that like one person that you meet that becomes, a client or a student or whatever it is can make that worth your time and your effort for sure.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Networking is great. And I definitely recommend yoga teachers doing it. I mean, I talked to a few of them, and, they're like, well, I don't really see the point, or, where would I network? What would I say? And we go over this a lot in my mentorship program, about the power of networking and what you need to take with you. And I'm not talking a bunch of paperwork, I'm talking about the 60 seconds to tell the world why you're special, essentially your elevator pitch, and really getting that solidified, whether you're a corporate yoga teacher like me or you're a studio owner. I think it's really important to get out there in the community and talk to your community so that they know who you are, because it's all about knowing you, liking you, and trusting you. So if you're a yoga studio, you're a yoga studio among a million, right? So, and there's a lot of yoga teachers out there too. So I think it's important to, it's also nice to talk to people that aren't in your industry, because it just gives you it broadens your range of knowledge, and it just gives you kind of another outlook. Because if you're a yoga teacher, you're a business owner, you're an entrepreneur. And it's just nice to kind of have a well-rounded understanding about entrepreneurship as a whole.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's like, you kind of touched on this in the beginning, like with your yoga teacher training, that, they didn't really cover too much about the business side of things. And again, I understand this, like 200 hours is really not enough time to cover anything in depth. Like,
right.
A specialist in anatomy or philosophy would say the same thing. Like they're not covering enough of it to really be like fully understanding the stuff. And from the business side, I'm like, we're really not covering anything with regards to what the average training that's following the Yoga Alliance guidelines is doing. And I had a similar experience. But I think that the thing that we don't realize, or that a lot of yoga teachers don't realize, is that you are a business when you come out into the world and you start working for yourself, which is essentially what you're doing. Even if you're contracted by yoga studios, you're in control of your schedule and how much money you make. It's this thing that we're talking about it more, and that's really what I'm trying to do with my podcast. And it sounds like you're trying to mentor people in the same way, which is amazing. But people just don't realize, like, nobody or most people don't get into teaching yoga because they want to be a yoga business. One of the things I'm curious about with your business, because I know corporate wellness is a big part of it, is what does it kind of look like on the corporate wellness side of things? Like when you're creating programs and when you're working with different businesses and companies?
Yeah. It's exciting. I get excited every time I talk about it. So it's very personalized. Like the whole initial part of the process is completely complimentary. So basically what I do is the first thing that is most important is figuring out who it is that you need to talk to. And sometimes that's what takes the most time. And that's where networking events really come in handy as well, because you might meet someone that's in accounting for a business, right? and they might really appreciate your energy and really like who you are and what it is that you stand for. And they will willingly provide you with the contact that you would need to speak with for, putting on or implementing a wellness package, wellness program, or even a wellness event, because we do both at the Rolling Mat. So finding out who you need to talk to is a really big part of it. There's a lot of other strategy that we probably don't have time to get into, but once I figure out the point of contact that I need to be speaking with, I have a phone call with them, and I just chat with them about their corporate culture and, their interest in a wellness program and what it is that they're really needing from one. Is it the physical asana, or is it more of the mental, brain nourishing, breath work, clarity of mind, teamwork, even bringing the team camaraderie back into the environment. So I really get a feel for what it is that they're needing. And then if I can, I try to go in and meet as many of the employees as I can. Sometimes it's done all through the phone, and sometimes it's done through face-to-face. And upon the initial conversation, they get my package of services. And then we build out and construct a program that works best for them. And now that I've really added on to my wellness or my wellness community that works alongside me, we offer everything from the actual yoga practice, really amazing workshops, both for mindfulness, teamwork, clarity work. And then I even have a financial person, very heart-centered financial advisor under me that does workshops in financing and, money 101 type workshops. So really we offer so much. I just started working with an interior designer that actually does, she has a huge history in helping corporations like structure their design for their office space. So she does workshops on, decluttering your cubicle and how to maximize your space so that you feel like you have some breathing room while you're working. So just a lot of really amazing things that we now offer. So we basically just structure and put together a unique package that meets the needs of the organization and what it is that they're needing.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that there's like so much stuff that you mentioned in there that is more outside the box of what you would think in terms of like traditional yoga. And I think that this is one of like a really key thing for yoga teachers to understand is that, we are taught these poses and these ways of doing yoga and practicing yoga and passing on the lineage of yoga and the teachings of yoga. But there's so many ways that we can implement the bigger concepts of yoga and also the practices of mindfulness. And those things like, something as simple as clearing up your workspace and making it feel like a more desirable space is massive.
Yes. Yeah, it really is. You got to think like sometimes I look at my own desk and I'm like, all right, I need to spend, an hour before I start my work today, just clearing space, because you start to feel like your environment. And if your environment is cluttered, then your mind's going to feel cluttered as well. And your work's not going to be as productive. So yeah, it's really amazing what we're able to bring. And, we typically do 6-month to full year contracts. We don't really do anything less than 6 months. Unless it's a one-off event, which we also put together.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm curious, like with some of the details around, I guess, like figuring out, the types of packages you're going to offer and that type of thing. Was it some trial and error, or did you already have like a clear idea when you started this of like exactly kind of what these contracts and packages would look like?
It was definitely trial and error. I mean, it all started with just, yoga classes. I mean, I would even introduce myself as, yeah, I'm a yoga teacher, mobile yoga teacher, Now, when I go to networking events, I tell people I'm a corporate wellness provider, because that's essentially what I am. And it almost has a better ring because, unfortunately, people associate a lot of different things with yoga. So when you say, yeah, I'm a yoga teacher, they either may just kind of brush it off in a sense because, okay, cool, you're a yoga teacher, or they might associate yoga with feeling like they have to believe in something, or when really all you have to believe in is yourself. um, the different titles or I guess sometimes misguided interpretations of yoga and yoga teachers. But yeah, it was all trial and error. And I mean, it was definitely times of completely undervaluing myself and, not charging enough and for what I was doing, for the work that I was doing. But, it all just came by doing. I learned best by doing. So I tripped and fell a few times, but I got back up and I learned from the falls. So
Yeah, that's amazing. And I'm definitely the same way. I think most people are kind of learn by doing. It's like you can kind of learn from other people's mistakes a little bit, but then you're still going to make your own along the way. And
right.
one of the things I'm curious about is, if there's somebody listening who's like, I would really love to get into the corporate wellness space, where does somebody start with that? Like if they're a yoga teacher teaching classes at a studio, what's kind of like the first step for them to take to get their business started with this?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, clarity and vision, number one. And this is something that we focus on a lot, like the first couple weeks of my program that I have, because the program that I offer is specifically for corporate yoga teachers. So either teachers that already have corporate clients but want more or want a better way of managing it or charging more, or teachers that have always wanted to get into corporate and have no idea where to start. So the program I offer is definitely a great resource. But I would also say that getting really clear on, your strengths, your why you want to do it, why you want to be a corporate yoga teacher, even your mission, your personal mission. And then in getting really clear on the types of companies that you're wanting to work with. Because, there's a million companies out there. The way that I kind of started networking and throwing myself out there, I've landed a lot of larger companies. So companies like Whole Foods and AT&T and Keller Williams Realty. But I also work with yoga teachers that want something a little smaller, or they want to work with co-working spaces, or they want to work with women's organizations. So getting really clear on, who it is that you're wanting to target, who it is that you're wanting to reach out to. And that's going to help you find the right networking events to go to. That's going to help you, discover who you should be researching on LinkedIn. And also getting a better idea of those points of contacts that you need to be reaching out to. Because a lot of yoga teachers, when they first start with me, they're like, I've been reaching out to human resources and I'm not getting anywhere. Well, really, unless you know someone in human resources and you have a good relationship with someone in human resources, you're not really going to get anywhere with human resources. They don't really jump on anything unless the president of the company is telling them to. So you kind of have to think outside the box and look into other, job titles. And again, like I said, networking is one of the best ways, and also hosting your own workshops or events. And they don't have to be beer yoga like mine. They could be, a workshop on breath work, or maybe you do yoga in the park, and then that way it's almost kind of like a free demo class, or not a free necessarily, but a demo class for a potential corporate person in the audience. And that actually happened to me. I was teaching one of my community events at a brewery, and the actual person that I would need to talk to if I were reaching out to this company came up to me and was like, I loved your class. We're looking at putting on a wellness program, and you seem like you'd be a perfect fit for it. So
that's amazing.
Yeah. So really getting out there, showing face and getting really clear on why it is that you're doing what you're wanting to do, because that's going to help you speak with undeniable confidence when you go in to pitch yourself and your wellness offers to corporations, when you are, super clear on why it is you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah. And with that clarity as well, do you feel like it's important to have clarity on like what the offering is with the contract or the packages or the price that you offer? Or is that something that like you often negotiate with clients, or when you first started, what did that look like?
Well, yeah, when I first started, I didn't have as many. I mean, it was just yoga. I was like, yeah, I'll come in and teach yoga, and that's pretty much the extent of it. And I've always offered the equipment, which has always been very appealing. I bring all the mats and blocks and straps with me. Um, but I I say having a basic package. So in my program, we just went over this. It's kind of like if you think about like a cable company, you can get the most basic package, gives you the cable and like a few movie channels, or you can get the pro package, which gives you like 20 movie channels plus the cable plus a phone line kind of thing. So having a list of your offers and a list of your benefits, your main basic benefits and offers to start, and be like, this is what you can start with, or you can add on with workshops or massage therapy, or workshops in all of these different categories, or even more yoga classes, different yoga classes. So I go into it now with, I have a basic package, and then I get a feel for, okay, this organization wants more workshop than they want actual yoga class. But they do want an element of both. So we might do 2 yoga classes and 2 workshops a month instead of 4 yoga classes a month. Yeah. And then with that too, every corporation pretty much does a employee wellness or an employee appreciation day rather. It's either, mid-year, maybe at the end of the year. And we structure those as well, built around wellness from all of the people that we work with. So, we can do yoga, we can do massage, we can do financial workshops, or even, like kind of more eco-friendly workshops, and things like that. So it starts with something basic, and then either they opt in for the basic and they work with that for a while, or they're like, no, this is really what we want. And then I put that together for them as they need it.
Right. Yeah. I love that. I love having like the idea of like some sort of package or something that you offer, and then also having, some flexibility within it to really customize it to the needs of the business.
Yeah, exactly. And that's usually the part where a lot of teachers struggle. They're like, well, I don't know, like, what do I offer? What do I say? And that's where we really dive deep into the clarity and the vision. That's why I spend a good solid 2 weeks on that in the program. And
Yeah.
also, that's something that you continuously have throughout your yoga career. I mean, you're always going to have these moments of clarity and this vision, because I still have moments of clarity and moments where I'm building even more onto my business than I originally thought I would. So yeah, just getting really clear, and then turning that into a package.
Hmm. Yeah. No, I love that. I feel like clarity and vision is so important. It's like such a key part of everything that we do. So I love that. And so you've mentioned your program a couple of times. Can you tell me a little bit about that, and then also where people can go to find that?
Yeah, so it is I have 2. So my first one, I start every yoga teacher out in, that I'm just getting to know. It's my 12-week jumpstart program. So it's 12-week jumpstart to landing high ticket and consistent corporate clients. And it is a Facebook community. It's private Facebook community. So you're not only getting expert support from me, but you're also getting support from other yoga teachers in the group as well that are on a similar journey that you are on. Some are at different levels. Some have had corporate gigs and want more, or lost them, and they don't know why. Some have never had a corporate gig, but that's what they want to work toward, getting a consistent corporate basis going on. So the support in the group, it's just, I've loved it because it's so heartfelt. It's so heartfelt, and we're all in there supporting one another. And you get training every single week. And it's not like a boring PowerPoint that you have to read. It's actual like me talking and presenting the topic of what it is that we're talking about. So, we dive into a lot of things. We get really clear. We talk a lot about branding, and I'm not talking about your logo or the colors on your website. I'm talking about your, like, basically how you are presenting yourself to your audience. Like, what are you saying to your audience? And there's so much other things involved with that. And then moving on from the 12, I also have a 9-month accelerator program. So in this program, it's a little more like intensive. You get even more one-on-one support with me. In the 12-week, we have 4 90-minute calls via Zoom in the group. So we all get to chat and talk, and we do a training. And then I also leave the floor open for, any questions that the yoga teachers are having. And then in the 9-month accelerator program, you actually get up to 4 one-on-ones with me. And we also have group calls, and that's a little bit more intensive in the fact that, we are going over, you are submitting your proposals, you are submitting emails before you send them. It's just really intense support and accountability. Not that the 12-week isn't, but you have more time in the 9-month as well. So there's a little bit more, room to spend more time on certain things that need attention. So a lot of the yoga teachers that start off in my 12-month, they graduate to the 9-month. And, if a yoga teacher has been in corporate and they have a, kind of like a solid foundation, then, they have the opportunity to, kind of skip over the 12-week and go into the 9-month. But I really like to start everyone in the 12-week because that's where a lot of the clarity happens.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And so if people are interested in learning more about that, where can they go to find that?
So I have a Facebook group, and that's usually where a lot of people start. It's my free Facebook group. So it's called Mastering the Corporate Yoga Biz. So it's the Rolling Mat Community, Mastering the Corporate Yoga Biz. And I can provide you the link too if you'd like. But you can go over there and join. And in there, I have a lot of trainings, a lot of free trainings that you can go ahead and review and participate in, and ask questions of the group in there as well. So it's a good place to start for you to kind of get to know me, get to know that side of the group. And then from there, if interested, we can schedule a free connection call where I learn more about you, you learn more about the program and me, and we see if it's a good fit for you.
Amazing. I love all of that. I'll make sure there's links for everything. And then if people want to check you out, Stephanie, find you online, where's the best place for them to go outside the Facebook group?
So on Instagram, it's at Rollin with no G, ROLLIN, Yogi. And on my link tree, there's a link to a lot of other resources. And then my website, which is therollingmatadventure.com.
Amazing. I will make sure there's links to all of that. Thank you so much for this conversation. You are such a wealth of knowledge, and I just love everything that you're bringing to the yoga space. You and I are so aligned in terms of how we view business and yoga. So I'm really, really grateful that we got to connect today.
I am too. I really appreciate it. This has been a lot of fun.
All right, friends, I hope that you enjoyed that episode of the podcast with Stephanie Mitchell from The Rolling Mat. Make sure you go check her out and learn as much as you can from her, join her private Facebook community and all that good stuff. If you are looking to deepen your understanding of yoga business or maybe dive into some strategy, I would love to have a one-on-one session with you. I love working with yoga teachers to talk about money mindset, branding, the foundations of business, email marketing, and so much more. So if that's something you're interested in, head on over to mbomyoga.com/consulting or send me an email at info@mbomyoga.com. As always, thanks so much for listening, and I'll see you next week.